with Dr. Ware-Asbury?
That is an issue that I am not familiar with. I would like to get more exposure to that issue, bring it to the constituents, see what their feelings are about it, weigh the pros and cons, and then make a definitive decision. But yet, before I get very much involved, I would rather do more study.
Ms. Garcia?
I heard the dark sky, missed the second.
Sure. Are you familiar with concepts of rural development requiring dark sky lighting, horseback riding, hiking and bicycle paths, and recreational access? Do you support such concepts, and will you adopt those for this area if elected? If so, why? And if not, why not?
Yes, I do. I think that the dark sky, specifically in this community that we're in right now, helps preserve, again, the ambience that we're talking about in this community. Secondly, in regards to horse trails, we definitely want to minimize any type of fee situation that you would have for using those trails, and I do support, that's why we live in the Upper Valley, so that we can have horses, we can have those type of trails in the neighborhood. So,
Mr. Hinojosa?
Yes, I do. It is my understanding that all El Pasoans work hard, but some people work very hard for the lifestyle that they have. People on the Upper Valley, the ones that I've met, have worked hard to have that type of lifestyle. Whether it be a ranch, a farm, or a few horses, what have you, they have worked for that. That's the life they want. They earned it. They own it. They deserve to preserve it.
Mr. Schechter?
I'm a little confused by the question. The dark sky ordinance applies everywhere in El Paso, so it would apply to the valley as well. I don't see anybody complaining about it, and I don't see any need to change it. So you have it, and we'll abide by it. Horse trails, the city has been trying to work with Upper Valley, Save the Valley, and several other neighborhood associations to provide money for horse trails. I think that's an amenity that can help define El Paso as a destination point, a place to be. Hike and bike trails is somewhat a little different. Those are being contemplated for new developments in areas where they can have the ability to build in hike and bike trails within the community development. It's a little harder to do in an already established community, especially one like the Upper Valley that has kind of narrow roads, and bikes and roads, especially narrow ones, don't necessarily always get along. So I think that would be harder, and unless there's an outcry from people in the Upper Valley that they want those type of amenities, I would pass on that for the time being.
Ms. Lilly?
Yes. Well, first of all, I think there are people, I know there are people that take their bicycles up there on the weekend and get out of their vehicles and ride. That it's a very pleasant place for bicycles. Yes, and the city has, through a neighborhood program, provided, I think, $25,000 for a trail, a horse trail around a 23-acre park. So the city is trying to work with limited funds to provide horse trails. And quite frankly, I grew up and had a horse in the Upper Valley, so I do appreciate riding in the Upper Valley.
In attending city meetings with Dover coal planners, we heard about their possibly recommending smart growth clustering in the valley. The concept is to cluster high-density residential, including apartments and retail establishments, immediately surrounded by a green belt of farmland. Do you support this concept? If so, why? And if not, why not? Representative Lilly.
I support the concept, but not in the Upper Valley. I go back to the 2.5 houses to an acre. I think that this is a different part of El Paso. It's a unique part, and people are happy there. And there are plenty of other places that we can do smart growth and cluster and do the kind of Dover Cole suggestions.
So you do not support it for the Upper Valley? Mr. Schechter?
I'm not aware of any discussions to bring that to the Upper Valley, although nothing would surprise me given what the city's done in the past. But we would certainly not put that in the Upper Valley.
Hulseth?
You know when smart growth becomes dumb growth? When it starts hurting business? I've talked to so many businesses, and I know smart growth is a complex, comprehensive plan, but I'm all in favor of having the smart growth as far as saving on transportation costs and things like that, and having access to the convenience stores and things like that. But what I've been hearing also about the smart code is this restrictions and regulations that come with it. When somebody has to buy or sell a house, for example, if they have to meet a certain code with the appliances and things like that, or if the builder is building homes and he can no longer build them at an affordable price because of the smart code, that's when the smart code isn't too smart. So it has to be revisited and make sure it stays smart.
So would you support smart growth clustering in the Upper Valley?
The Upper Valley has already spoken for the 2.5, and I'm sticking with that.
So the answer is no?
No.
Ms. Ness Garcia?
No, I would not. I would point out, though, with the smart code already effectively, and there's a difference between smart growth and smart code, and people have been using the term interchangeably. The smart code has effectively been implemented, and it has one model, and it's one model for all of El Paso, which I do not believe works. So in terms of trying to have cluster housing with shops and all of those type of resources underneath it, that would probably work for the downtown area, for young professionals who don't have families or kids. It will not work in the Upper Valley. It will change the entire dynamic and the feel of the Upper Valley and the culture there. So right now, I mean, I absolutely don't support it, and I also think that smart code itself needs to take into account different models for different areas of the neighborhood. I mean, of the city, I'm sorry.
Dr. Ware, Asbury?
I think smart code is worthy for their examination and weigh the pros and cons. But for any change that's contemplated for the Upper Valley, I am totally against it. I like the ambience of the Upper Valley. Citizens, constituents of the Upper Valley have spoken and have spoken very loud and very clearly and very definitively. And as such, I see no need, there has been no need established to stray from those directions from the citizens.
Okay. So again, on the record, you are...
Totally against it for the Upper Valley.
Okay.
Unequivocally.
Thank you. Significant commercial and industrial development is planned for the Santa Teresa area in the immediate future, which will require access to I-10. What commitment will you give to your constituents toward the necessary improvements to Artcraft and the Artcraft I-10 interchange? Dr. Ware Asbury will begin.
I would recommend that the $73 million that was suggested to be used for the extension of Red Road be used to enhance the accessibility of Artcraft and identify the weaknesses of Artcraft and improve those weaknesses and ensure that it can accommodate the commercial as well as the regular traffic that it was designed to accommodate.
Ms. Ness Garcia?
I think I previously answered this, which is the expansion of the slip roads on the Artcraft entrance ramps heading west specifically onto I-10. That will make the change, that will encourage traffic that way. And I would like to point out, the $73 million was not the cost, it was the estimated cost by the folks who actually did the studies and opposed the expansion of Red Road. The city didn't give us an estimated cost, so we don't know how much the city thinks it's going to cost. That's how much Save Our Valley and the individuals who got involved estimated it would cost. So I just want to be clear about that.
Ms. Drina Hulseth?
Thank you. You know, most of the information I've been getting from the constituents is that something has to be done in Artcraft. And of course, I'm in favor of what they're telling me because the backup is pretty strong. But one of the things that I notice is a lot of the questions take into assumption that we have all the answers. There's people who have been studying this for years. I'm not going to pretend that I have all the answers for how to deal with traffic on the west side. But I do know that the people who know and have been studying this for years and are affected by it, the residents, They have the answers. So again, I encourage the discussions with open forums like this before anything is done in that area. But I have been hearing from my constituents that something has to be done.
Mr. Schechter?
I really don't know how to answer that. It's the last information I had about Ockcraft was that people weren't using it. How do we get people to actually use the road that was built to take traffic off of Country